Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The apartment that forgot I left. She woke up gasping, not in bed, but on the kitchen floor, drenched in cold water. The faucet was on full blast. Her hair was soaked, her arms were scratched, and the apartment was whispering again. Not the kind of whisper you could mistake for wind or imagination. These were actual voices, hushed, urgent, moving just beyond sight. "Anna!" they hissed from inside the walls. It wasn't the first time. Anna sat up, blinking through the fluorescent kitchen light, heart pounding like a war drum. The linoleum beneath her was slick and sticky in patches, as if something had bled and half-dried. She didn't remember falling asleep or blacking out. The last thing she could recall was brushing her teeth. That was last night, or 2 nights ago. The whisper came again. "Don't leave." She scrambled to her feet and slapped the faucet off. Water pooled at the base of the cabinets. The sink was full of wet clothes, her clothes, shredded into strips. "What the hell?" she whispered to herself. The clock on the microwave blinked 12 missing green. Useless. The power had gone out 3 days ago. Maybe 4. She was losing track. Anna staggered toward the hallway, passing the living room window. Outside, the world was a motionless photo, her street frozen in the fog. No people, no cars, just dense grey and a hollow stillness. This was supposed to be temporary. A sublet she found on Reddit. Cheap, month to month, perfect for starting over after the divorce. But this apartment didn't let people leave. She tried 3 times. The first time, the elevator brought her back up to the same floor, even when she pressed the ground level. The second time, the front door was bricked over from the outside. Literally, just bricks where glass doors had been. The third time, she packed her suitcase, turned around, and it was gone. Just gone. Replaced with a rocking chair that creaked. On its own. That was a week ago, or maybe yesterday. Time here didn't move the same. Her phone didn't work either. Not for calls, not even to check the time. It only displayed the same notification. Return what was taken. She hadn't taken anything. At least she didn't think so. That morning, if it was morning, Anna opened her closet and screamed. It wasn't empty anymore. It was full of Polaroids, hundreds of them, hanging on twine with rusty clips. They weren't there yesterday. Some were faded, others newly taken. All of them were faces, people screaming, crying, asleep, dying. One photo fluttered loose and landed at her feet. It was her, lying exactly as she had woken up an hour ago, on the kitchen floor, soaked in water, eyes wide open in terror. The timestamp in the corner said 5:13 a.m., but the clock didn't work. A soft creak behind her made her turn. The closet door began to close. On its own. She lunged to stop it, but the air around her turned cold, and a voice whispered directly in her ear, "One more chance." She slammed the door shut and backed away. Anna needed answers. She sat at her tiny kitchen table with the only working thing in the apartment, her second-hand laptop. No Wi-Fi, no signal, but one thing always loaded, the Reddit post she found, the apartment from. It wasn't there anymore. Instead, the screen showed a thread titled, "This apartment was never meant for the living. Serious." Usernames were blurred. Every reply had been posted 6 minutes ago, even the ones claiming to be 8 years old. She scrolled through. They said she never paid rent. That's because she was dead. "I found the bones under the bathtub. She was clawing toward the drain. Don't accept the tea. That's how she marks you. Too late now. If you're reading this, she already knows your name. Return what was taken." Anna closed the laptop. Her stomach twisted. She ran to the bathroom and vomited. When she wiped her mouth and looked up, she screamed. Someone had written a word across the fogged-up mirror. Liar. That night the voices returned. Not from the walls this time, but from inside the kitchen cabinet. Scraping, slow, deliberate, like something sharpening its teeth on the wood. She pressed her ear against it. "Anna," it moaned. Come see. Come see what you forgot." She didn't want to, but her legs moved anyway. She crouched and opened the cabinet. Inside was a human jawbone, just the jaw, teeth intact. It was still wet. There was a note tucked inside it. Anna unfolded the paper with shaking hands. In red ink, or blood, it read, "You promised to stay. You broke the circle." Circle. Her eyes darted to the tiles beneath her. They weren't tiles, they were salt lines. Thick, white, powdered rings drawn around every room, every door, every mirror, and in one spot, the salt line had been smeared by water. The kitchen, the sink, the faucet. That's why she woke up soaked. Something had gotten in, and it was waiting. Midnight, she heard the sound of footsteps pacing the hallway, heavy, male, slow. She pressed herself against the door, listening. Her breathing was shallow. Then a voice she hadn't heard in 5 years. "Hey, baby, you miss me?" She gasped. Derek, her ex-husband. He'd died in a crash. She saw his body, closed casket. But that was his voice. She backed away. Dr. Handel turned, then stopped, then a laugh, then silence. Anna knew she had to get out, whatever this apartment was. It had fed on her fear long enough. She'd confront it. Burn it if she had to. She packed a bag with matches, salt, the Polaroid of herself and her laptop. She walked to the elevator. It dinged before she pressed anything. The doors slid open. Inside was not the elevator. It was a staircase, spiraling, down into pitch black. At the base she could see movement, a shape, someone swaying side to side. She leaned forward, squinting into the dark. A whisper rose from below, soft and cruel. "Don't you remember what you did to me?" She turned to run, but behind her the hallway was gone. Only one door remained. Closet door, the same one from her bedroom. It creaked open slowly, revealing nothing but shadows, and a single note nailed to the inside. "You left me in the dark. Now it's your turn," she screamed. The light bulb overhead burst, and then something grabbed her ankle, pulled hard, and she vanished into the dark. The basement that wasn't there yesterday. Darkness swallowed Anna whole. Her screams echoed for only a second before the sound was choked off, as if the space around her didn't allow panic to exist for long. The fall didn't end with a thud. She didn't hit ground. She just stopped falling and found herself standing, breathing hard, blind, cold. Then a match struck to her left. A tiny flame wavered in the dark, revealing a narrow hallway, concrete walls on each side glistening with moisture. The flame hovered in mid-air, no hand holding it, and then it spoke. "You shouldn't have broken the circle," the flame whispered. It blinked out. Anna ran. Her bare feet slapped the floor, her breath loud and ragged. The hallway curved and twisted, more like a labyrinth than any building's basement. No matter how far she went, the space stayed pitch black, except for the red glow seeping from hairline cracks in the walls. The smell grew worse with every step. Metal, mold, death. Then she heard a laugh. A girl's laugh, young, close. It was followed by a small voice. "Hide, she's coming." Anna froze. From the crack ahead of her, a pale arm slipped through, small fingers, dirt under the nails. The hand curled and beckoned. Against every instinct screaming in her body, Anna stepped toward the crack and was pulled through. She tumbled into a different space, a child's bedroom, but wrong. The proportions were off, the ceiling too low, the corners too sharp. Toys littered the carpet, their eyes missing or melted. A nightlight flickered near the bed, shaped like a smiling sun. On the bed sat a girl, maybe 10 years old, long black hair, skin so pale it looked dusted with flour. Her dress was pink, but blood had soaked into the sleeves. The girl tilted her head at Anna. "You moved my bones," she said. Anna's throat tightened. "What?" "You moved my bones. That's why the house is angry. That's why she woke." Up. I don't. Who are you? The girl crawled off the bed and pointed to the ceiling. Her voice changed. Deeper now, older. She lives above, but feeds below. You left the basement door open, Anna. Anna backed away, bumping into a dresser. The mirror on it showed her reflection, but only hers. The girl was gone. Then the dresser drawer burst open. Inside, rotting limbs, arms, legs torn from bodies and arranged like dolls. Some still twitched. One hand wore her old wedding ring. She screamed and turned to run. But the room had changed. No door. Just a closet. Always. The closet. She opened it and stepped through. Now she stood in her old house, the one she and Derek had lived in, the one he died in. The kitchen was just as she remembered it. Wood panel cabinets, yellow tiles, a crooked spice rack. The scent of burnt toast and pine cleaner filled the air. But something was off, too clean, too still. And then, Derek's voice. "I was waiting for you to come back," he said. She turned. He stood by the sink, shirtless, burned. The side of his face was melted, bones peeking through like broken porcelain. His eyes were milky white, his smile wrong, too wide. "You're not real," Anna whispered. He took a step forward. "You said you'd never leave me. You said we'd stay together, even after death." "That wasn't a promise. That was a prayer," she hissed, backing away. He laughed, a low, grating sound. "Then pray harder." Suddenly the room shifted, like gravity buckled. The cabinets rattled, the lights exploded. Anna fell to her knees, gripping the floor as everything spun. Then silence. She was back in the apartment, but not the same apartment. This version looked aged. Black mold crept along the ceiling. Wallpaper peeled in wet curls. Furniture sat under white sheets, stained with handprints, and across the living room, nailed to the wall, was a mirror, cracked, tall, framed in rusted iron. In the center of it, her reflection stared back, but blinked late. Anna stepped closer. The reflection grinned. "Return what was taken," it whispered, moving its lips silently while Anna's own mouth stayed still. Then a black shadow passed behind the mirror. Anna. Someone else was in there. She smashed the mirror with her elbow. Glass shattered. But behind it wasn't the wall. It was another room, candle-lit, circular. In the center, a stone altar. And on the altar, her name was carved. Dozens of names circled it. Anna, Derek, Laurel, Elias, Claire, some crossed out, others etched deeper. Atop the altar lay a photo of her mother. Anna hadn't seen that picture since she was 8. Her mother in a hospital bed, holding baby Anna, tubes in her arm, eyes sunken from the cancer. "What is this?" Anna whispered. A voice echoed from all directions. "This is your family's debt." The walls of the altar room were covered in old newspaper clippings. One caught her eye. "Missing girl found in basement of historic apartment complex. Authorities say the child was kept alive for days before vanishing again. The apartment was sealed in 1991 and deemed unsafe due to structural instability and unexplained deaths." There was a photo. The same little girl from earlier. In the background stood a young woman, face blurred, but the name was clear beneath. Claire Hendricks, Anna's mother. Her breath caught. The candlelight flickered violently. The door behind her slammed shut. Whispers rose in a frenzy. "You left her. You left her. She begged for help and you left." The photo on the altar caught fire, and as it burned, the flames formed words in mid-air. "Blood skips a generation." "Yours was next." Anna staggered back through the broken mirror. The apartment was now flooded ankle-deep with black water. It rippled as if something massive was swimming beneath the surface. Then a face rose from it, eyeless, bloated, mouths stitched shut. Dozens more followed. Drowned, forgotten. Anna screamed and bolted for the front door. It opened. For the first time, she ran into the hallway. No bricks, no fog, no shadow. Just silence. She didn't stop until she reached the street. The city looked normal. Cars, people, late-night traffic hums. She turned around. The building was gone. Not boarded up, not in ruins. Gone. Just an empty lot. Grass swaying gently in the breeze. A small wooden sign stuck in the ground read, "Under construction, future site of Hendricks Memorial Shelter." She stared, her mother's name. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket. It had power, one notification. "Read it? You left her alone, just replied to your post. You think it's over?" She dropped the phone. It began to ring. Not vibrate. Ring. An actual phone call, caller ID, unknown. She answered. The voice on the other end was a child, whispering, "You forgot my bones, Anna." The ground beneath her feet cracked, and the city lights blinked out. One by one. You left her behind. Anna couldn't scream. The sound wouldn't come out. She stood frozen on the cracked sidewalk, the phone still hot in her palm. Behind her, the empty lot shimmered like a heat wave, only it was cold, icy, the kind of cold that seeped into your spine and made your teeth ache. And then, a voice, not from the phone, from behind her. "You were supposed to take her bones with you." Anna spun around. No one, but the wind carried a scent again, old lilies, wet dirt, and something bitter. Like sorrow turned sour. The city looked wrong, frozen mid-motion. A man reaching for a car door was stuck in place, his eyes wide. A woman pushing a stroller didn't move. Even the baby was like a wax figure. Streetlights flickered like dying stars. Everything was silent, still, like time had stopped just for her, and then her shadow moved, not with her, away from her. It crawled across the pavement like oil, stretching long and unnatural. She backed away. It kept coming, and then it rose, shaping itself into a tall, spindly figure with a stitched mouth and hollow black holes where the eyes should have been. It whispered with a voice like breaking glass. She begged your mother for help. She screamed for days, and Claire closed the door. Anna turned and ran, down alleys, across streets. No matter where she went, the world stayed frozen until she reached the cemetery. She didn't know why her feet brought her there, or how she'd even gotten there so fast. But the rusted gates of Hendricks Memorial Cemetery were wide open, and something pulled her in. The graves were old, crumbling, moss-covered, but one stood out, fresh. No flowers, no name. Just a single word carved into the stone. Sorry. Anna stepped. Closer. The earth beneath the grave caved in. She fell. Again. This time she landed in water, thick, black, like ink. She swam upward, choking, arms thrashing, and surfaced inside a well-lit hospital hallway. The contrast made her dizzy. The floors were linoleum, yellowing under flickering fluorescent lights. The walls were too clean, too quiet, and then she saw her mother, Claire, younger, stronger, wearing a pale blue nurse uniform, pushing a medication cart. Anna's breath caught. She tried to speak, to call out, but her voice stayed locked in her throat. Claire walked down the hallway, stopped at room 214 and pulled out a syringe. Inside the room, a girl whimpered. Anna moved closer, pressed her face to the small window. A little girl was tied to the bed, the same girl from the strange apartment, the one with the pale skin and bleeding dress. She was crying. "Please," the girl sobbed. "Please don't put me back down. There, it's dark in the floor, it moves." Claire opened the door, and her voice was calm, cold. "If you scream again," she said, "I'll seal it tighter this time." She injected the girl. Anna pounded the glass, screamed. No one looked at her. Then the hallway dissolved. Walls melted. Lights snapped. She was falling again, not through space, but memories. She landed in her childhood home. It was snowing. Outside, Christmas. Anna was 5 years old again, hiding behind the couch. She saw her mother, crying, on the phone. "It was just one girl," Claire said, whispering harshly. "They said she wasn't right in the head. You don't know what it was like in that place." The person on the other end shouted something Anna couldn't hear. Claire's face twisted. "I did what I had to." She slammed the phone down. Then she walked past little Anna, never noticing her, and the house began to peel. The walls shed like skin. The floor turned to ash, and once again Anna stood in the altar room, where her name had been carved. Only now dozens more names had been added, and each one pulsed red. She noticed something new. A small plaque nailed to the far wall. "The bloodline must pay. If the bones are not claimed, the debt grows." Suddenly the altar cracked. A hand reached out from within. Blackened, fingernails broken, then another. They began to climb out. Not people. Shadows. Screaming. Without mouths, crying without eyes. Anna ran. She burst awake, in her car, parked on a quiet street. It was daylight. People walked past normally. Cars drove by. The world had reset. Had it been a dream? Anna's hands were filthy, her nails bloody. Her phone was gone. Her clothes were damp with sweat and something else. Her rearview mirror had a message written in the fogged glass. "Fraud days." She didn't know what it meant, but her gut twisted. Then, behind her in the back seat, a voice whispered, "You forgot me again." She turned, swinging her arm. Nothing there, but a small child's tooth sat on the seat. No blood, just clean. As if waiting to be noticed, Anna drove. She didn't know where, just away from herself, from her family, from the curse that had been passed to her like a silent inheritance. But she knew it wouldn't matter, because something was following her. Not outside, inside. 2 nights later, Anna broke into her mother's storage unit. She needed answers. The unit was packed with boxes, medical files, old furniture, VHS tapes. But one box sat in the center, no dust on it, written in thick black marker, "Do not open, Anna." She opened it. Inside, a child's dress, pink, bloodstained, a cassette labeled Patient 23, Final Session. A burnt photo of a young girl tied to a chair, with red tape over her mouth, and a journal. She read the journal by flashlight, hands trembling. Her mother had kept records. Every failed ritual, every haunting, every girl that had disappeared in the basement of that cursed apartment complex, and how the Hendricks family had built that building, on top of stolen land, using funds from a broken promise made to a dying child. The girl who now whispered in Anna's dreams. The girl no one buried. The bones that still cried. Ina played the cassette in her car. The tape crackled. Then, "Tell me what you saw. She's under the floor. She never sleeps. She says I'm hers now." "Why does she think that?" "Because you gave me to her." "That's not true." "Then why'd you lock the door?" Click. Silence. Anna pressed her head to the steering wheel. Then she felt it, a slow breath across the back of her neck. She turned. Nothing. But on the inside of the windshield, smeared in condensation, "1 day left." She screamed, and in the sea. Reflection. From the dark back seat, she saw her mother, dead, grinning. The bones. Remember. The motel room smelled like mildew and cigarettes. Anna hadn't slept. She couldn't. Her body was exhausted, but her mind, her soul, felt stretched, thin, like someone had been whispering in her ear for hours. All night she'd heard the soft dragging of bones across the floor. Sometimes it was inside the walls, sometimes under the bed. Once it was inside her chest. Now it was morning, and the window had something new smeared on the inside of the glass. Tonight. She stared at it, lips trembling. There were no footsteps, no doors opened, but she wasn't alone. She never was. She sat at a greasy diner counter with her mother's journal open beside her. The pages had grown darker. At first it was clinical, recordings of failed exorcisms and emergency sedation notes. But by the end, Claire's writing spiraled into obsession, scribbles, symbols, and then one line repeated over and over. Bone Girl isn't dead, she's patient now. Anna flipped to the back cover. There, in shaky pen, her mother had written, "If you're reading this, it means I've failed, and she's chosen you next. Don't go back to the basement. That's what she wants. She'll trick you into finishing what I started." But that was the problem. Anna had to go back, because the dreams had changed. They weren't just visions anymore. They were instructions. She was being pulled to the place where it all began. That night, Anna stood in front of the ruined apartment, building her family once owned. Block 14B. It had been condemned years ago after a fire. Windows boarded up, chains on the doors. But the chains were broken, as if something had already gone inside. The wind whispered, "You brought her back. Now finish it." She stepped in. The air smelled of ash and rust. Mold climbed the walls like veins. She descended the stairs, flashlight flickering in her hand, down to the sub-basement. It had been sealed, but now the old concrete door stood open. Inside was the altar room, only now it was different. Alive. The carvings glowed faintly red. The room pulsed, like it had a heartbeat, and in the center the bones were laid out. Small, fragile, as if someone had lovingly placed each one back in its proper spot. Anna dropped to her knees. She wept. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." The air shifted. A figure stepped from the shadows, not a ghost. Her mother, but not alive either. Claire's skin was pale, like wax, eyes hollow, a mouth stitched shut. Anna gasped, "Mom?" Claire raised her hand, pointed at the bones, then lifted her other hand and opened her own stitched mouth slowly, thread tearing, blood dripping, and she spoke. "She doesn't want forgiveness." Anna backed away, shaking. "What does she want?" Claire's head tilted, her eyes rolled back, and a child's voice poured out from Claire's lips, not her own. "She wants to finish being born." The ground shook, the bones rattled, and then they floated, upward, assembling mid-air, like a puppet strung by invisible hands. Skin grew over them, hair, eyes, teeth. A little girl stood in the center of the room, dressed in Anna's childhood clothes, bleeding from her mouth, eyes, and fingertips. "Hi, Anna," she said sweetly. Anna shook her head. "No, you're not me," the girl smiled. "Not yet." Then she stepped forward. "Your blood woke me, your guilt fed me, and now you get to keep your promise." "I didn't make any promise." The girl's face cracked open, literally, her jaw unhinging as if she was unzipping her face. Inside was darkness, no tongue, no throat, just space. "Your family did, and you carry their name. You carry me." Suddenly, Anna couldn't move. Her legs locked, her arms trembled. Behind her the altar began to rise, stone grinding as it lifted to reveal a staircase descending into pitch-black water. Claire screamed, or tried to, but the child turned and, with one wave of her tiny hand, Claire shattered into dust. Anna screamed. The girl looked at her. "You will walk down. You will give me your body, and when I wear your face, I'll be whole again." Anna whimpered. "Why? Why me?" "Because I remember everything your mother buried. Every cry, every claw mark, every time she whispered, 'Just sleep,' while she poured salt into my mouth." Tears streamed down Anna's face. "I'm sorry." The girl's voice softened. "So am I." Then she reached out and touched Anna's forehead. Flash, Anna stood in her childhood bedroom. She was 6. The closet door creaked open. The little girl inside stepped out, same as before. But now she was crying. Anna, as a child, backed. "Away," the girl whispered. "You left me down there." "I didn't know," Anna whispered back. "But now you do." Suddenly, adult Anna was back in her body, still kneeling in the altar room. The child stood before her. "Finish it," the girl said, and handed her a shovel. It took hours. Anna dug through the concrete floor. She didn't know how, but her hands worked like they remembered until she hit the final piece, a rusted iron box. Inside, a heart, still beating, wrapped in a ribbon with the word "sorry" stitched in. Anna lifted it. The ground trembled, the walls cracked, and the little girl sighed. Her body began to fade, but not vanish. Instead, it stepped inside Anna. Anna collapsed. Everything went dark. She woke in the morning, lying on the cracked sidewalk outside the building. The sun was rising. The city was alive again. No shadows, no ghosts, no voices, just birds chirping and people walking dogs. Her phone buzzed beside her. One message. Unknown. Thank you for bringing her home. A week passed. Anna didn't tell anyone. She moved far away, started fresh. But every now and then, when she looked in the mirror, she saw the little girl standing behind her, smiling, sometimes crying, and sometimes speaking through her mouth in a voice that wasn't hers, the hollow inside her. Anna couldn't tell when the dreams ended and the waking world began. At first, it was just flickers, a word written in reverse on her bathroom mirror. Water, running when she hadn't turned the tap. Shadows standing perfectly still in places where light should have chased them away. But now she could hear the little girl laughing inside her ears, always just beneath the sound of her heartbeat. And, worst of all, Anna couldn't remember what she did during the nights anymore. One morning, Anna woke up to find her feet muddy, her fingernails caked with soil, and a fresh cut on her cheek, shaped like a crooked smile. The mirror had a new message. 2 more to go. She wanted to scream, wanted to run, but something deeper than fear rooted her to the floor. It wasn't over. The girl wasn't finished, and Anna, whether she wanted to or not, was helping her. Anna drove across 2 states without knowing why. Some force was guiding her hands. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew where she was going, even if she couldn't explain it. She arrived at a small town tucked behind redwoods, old graveyards, and a shuttered asylum. It was called Rook's Hollow. She checked into a motel using a fake name, but the clerk still smiled like he knew her. "Room 11, he said, sliding her the key. "They've been waiting." Anna froze. "Who?" The man didn't answer, just grinned. A moment later his nose started to bleed, a long black stream that dripped onto the counter, but he kept smiling, like he couldn't feel it. That night, Anna's dreams turned into memories, but they weren't hers. She saw the asylum. Years ago, a man in a white coat stood over a girl strapped to a bed. The girl's eyes were missing, her mouth sewn shut. She was covered in salt and still alive. The man said, "She must never speak again. Her voice will wake what sleeps below." Then, in the dream, the girl turned her head, looked right at Anna, and said, without lips, without sound, "Wake me." Anna jolted upright in her motel bed. Her hands were around her own neck. She couldn't breathe, and in the corner of the room, something was sitting on the dresser. The little girl, smiling. But now, her face had begun to rot. Flies buzzed in and out of her eye sockets. Her jaw twitched when she spoke. 2 more. Anna gasped. 2 more what? The girl tilted her head. "Blood. Yours. Theirs. Mine." She slid off the dresser and walked toward Anna on broken backward legs. "Tell me, Anna, do you remember what your grandfather did?" I never knew him." "Oh," the girl whispered. "But I did." She held out a rusted coin. Anna recognized it. A family heirloom. Something her mother used to keep in a box marked, "Do not open." The girl dropped it. And when it hit the floor, Anna's motel walls peeled away like paper. Now she stood in a dark basement. Chains hung from the ceiling. Blood stained the floor in ancient, sticky puddles, and a young version of her mother was chained to the wall, maybe 15 years old. Screaming, a man paced in front of her, tall, cold, her grandfather. He was humming, whispering something in Latin, holding the coin. And then he turned toward Anna, as if he could see through time, and said, "The firstborn in every 3rd generation must carry the hunger. You are the vessel, And she is the fire. Anna woke screaming. The motel staff found her standing in the hallway, scratching her arms raw, murmuring the same phrase over and over. Not my fault. Not my fault. Not my fault. They called the cops, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. 3 days passed. Anna lived in the woods. She didn't eat, didn't sleep. She was changing. Her eyes were growing darker, her skin colder, and the voice of the girl inside her head was getting louder. One night, she sat by the edge of a lake and saw herself across the water, not a reflection, another version of her, smiling, crawling on all fours, face twisted into something inhuman. And then it spoke. In her voice, you thought you were haunted, but you were always her. Anna ran back into town, back to the graveyard. She started digging. She didn't know whose grave it was, but her hands did. They worked like they remembered. By dawn, she'd unearthed a child's coffin. Inside was no body, just a mouth, still open, still whispering. The moment she saw it, Anna collapsed. Her ears bled. Her nose broke on impact with the dirt. The whispering grew louder. Then a scream, not hers, but someone inside her, the girl. She was angry, because Anna had remembered. In the distance, Anna heard police sirens. Someone must have called them. She didn't care. She looked up at the sky and spoke aloud. If you want to finish this, then use me. Just end it. Everything went still. The air folded, time bent, and the little girl stepped from behind a gravestone. Only. This time she was crying. She knelt beside Anna. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. I just wanted someone to remember. Anna nodded weakly. I remember now. And then the girl began to fade. But something else rose behind her, a shadow, taller than any tree, with hundreds of eyes, all blind, all bleeding. It reached down and touched Anna's chest, and everything went white. Anna woke up in a hospital, wrist restraints, monitors beeping, 2 detectives at the door. Can you tell us what happened? One asked. You were found in an unmarked grave, holding a child's dress, covered in symbols carved into your own skin. Anna blinked, then smiled. I don't remember, but the girl inside her did. She was still there, still whispering, still hungry. That night, the hospital lights flickered. A nurse screamed. The cameras cut out for 13 minutes. When they came back on, Anna's bed was empty. The restraints were still locked, but she was gone, and on the window, in blood, was written, "One more." The final voice. The hospital room was empty. No signs of forced exit, no broken locks, no shattered glass. Just the blood-written message on the window. One more. Anna was gone, but she hadn't escaped. Not really. She had become something else. They said she was seen that night, a woman, barefoot, standing in the middle of a bridge outside Rook's Hollow. No clothes, no fear, just eyes that looked ancient. She stood in front of a truck driver, didn't flinch, didn't move. And when the man finally braked inches from her, she leaned into his open window and whispered, "You're the last," then walked away into the fog. The driver's body was found 2 hours later, his eyes clawed out from the inside and carved into his chest with a child's handwriting. She's full now. A week later, Detective Omar Reyes couldn't shake the case. He didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in curses, but he did believe in patterns, and everything about Anna Carter followed a pattern older than the town itself. Missing children, whispers. In the walls of the Rook's Hollow Asylum, girls born every 3rd generation who either vanished or lost their minds, and always, always, coins left behind, not money. No, these coins weren't part of any known currency. They had faces with mouths, and if you held one too long, you'd start to feel them whispering to your fingertips. He had one now, in a bag. It throbbed like a small heart. He needed to end this. Reyes drove to the ruins of the asylum, burned down in 1987. The fire had killed 37 people. But one room remained untouched, the old records room. There, in a locked drawer, he found a file. Subject A13, Anna Carter's grandmother. Photos of a girl with blacked-out eyes. Muzzles over her mouth, restraints carved with salt markings. A note from a doctor. She cannot die the normal way. She hosts the voice. Reyes flipped to the last page. There, taped to the folder, was a newspaper clipping from 1901. Little. Girl found dead in Hollows Creek. Locals swear she still cries at night. And beneath it, a message scribbled in red ink. Bury her voice, or it will speak through the bloodline again. That night, Reyes dug up Anna's family plot. 3 generations of women, all with matching gravestones. But Anna's plot was empty, just like the others. Only one had anything inside, her mother's grave. When Reyes opened the coffin, he staggered back. There was no body, only hundreds of coins, mouths agape, and all of them, at once, began to laugh. Meanwhile, Inna stood in the attic of her childhood home. She didn't remember walking there, but the house remembered her. She wore her mother's old dress now. It fit her like it was waiting. Around her, candles flickered, though there was no wind. She began humming, the same tune her grandfather used to sing, and from the shadows the girl appeared, smiling, clapping her hands. "You did it," she said softly. Anna looked at her. Her voice was low, ancient, layered. "No, we did it." The girl stepped forward. "He's awake now, but he's still hungry." Anna's head tilted. "So am I." Suddenly, Anna's skin began to crack. Not with wounds, with mouths, all over her body. Tiny, writhing mouths, some crying, some laughing, some screaming prayers in forgotten languages. Her eyes rolled back, and from her throat, the voice of every woman in her bloodline began to pour out, all of them, at once, wailing, cursing, begging, and the girl clapped again. "Now," she whispered, "the hollow opens." Back at the cemetery, Reyes saw it happen. The sky turned black in one patch, a hole opened in the earth, something began to crawl out, long, blind limbs covered in mouths, no eyes, only hunger. Reyes pulled out the coin, held it, and finally listened. It whispered a name, over and over, not Anna, but his own daughter's. He understood then. It never ended. It only passed on. One voice to the next. One cursed child to another. The only way to stop it was to answer it. He called Anna. He didn't know how he had her number, but it rang, and she answered. The girl's voice spoke through her. "Are you ready?" Reyes swallowed hard. Yes. He walked into the grave, let the dirt cover him, and just before the last breath left his lungs, he smiled, because for a moment, just one, the whispering stopped. 6 months later, a house goes up for sale in Rook's Hollow, Anna's childhood home. Buyers say it's got charm, history, and the attic. It's locked, but sometimes if you press your ear against the door, you can hear a little girl humming, and sometimes you hear yourself humming back. Final line, they buried her voice, but it learned to crawl. The end.